Hello and welcome to Crucible of Words for more dedicated legacy action. Today we're playing my beloved Green-Black Turbodepths. So this is a deck that aims to put a 2020 into play. It does this by having the card Dark Depths, which when it has no counts on it, makes a 2020. We can either make a copy with no counters with the stage, and then we get 2020, or we can remove all the counters with a Hexmage. We've got some fast mana to power out in the form of Lotus Petal and a Spirit Guide. We've got tutors in the form of Crop Rotation and Sylvan Scrying to find them. And then we have protection pieces like Hand Disruption, Pithing Needle for things like Wasteland, and Ghost Quarter. We've got a little bit of a toolbox package in the land, so like Boseiju, Bojuka Bog, Sejiri Steppe, Ghost Quarter. Given there were no changes to the banned and restricted update, that's actually not a bad thing for the Turbodepths deck, because we already have main deck Graveyard Hate in the form of 4 Crop Rotations and the Bojuka Bog. And we basically are a deck that ignores a lot of fair plans. You know, if you're trying to beat us down with a few little creatures, we don't care because we're going to smack you with a 2020 and kind of obsolete a lot of that. So this deck has some pretty good tools. As we've seen at the moment, Lands is one of the better decks in the format. It can prey upon the 2 best decks in like Ouphe and Blue-Black Reanimator. So it's pretty good at being able to do that. And we have a lot of the same tools. Where our tools differ is that we tend to be a little bit faster and we have a bit more interaction with the combo decks, which is normally something that Lands can struggle with, because we have a bunch of Hand Disruption, which Lands decks don't. So there is a downside to that. We don't have the staying power and the alternative plans of Lands. So we are sort of giving up the mid to late game in favour of having a stronger earlier game trying to get this sort of stuff down. This particular build is a bit different from previous ones you've seen on the channel. We've gone up to 7 pieces of Hand Disruption here, and we've trimmed down on Not of This World. When the best deck in the format is Blue-Black Reanimator, and we're seeing that just in the challenge that happened earlier today, we saw 50% of the top 8 decks were Blue-Black Reanimator. So hedging towards beating that and the fact that the combo portion of the meta is something like 57% at the moment, just having more stuff to interact with combo feels like a good place. So I wanted to add in an extra piece of interaction in this way instead of the Not of This World. And what we can do with Hand Disruption is it can also take a lot of the things that Not of This World is going to be protecting us from anyway. We still have the one of Disruptor Flute, which is like the 5th Pithing Needle, but sometimes it names Doomsday and buys you the time you need. Sometimes it names Swords to Plowshares and ruins your opponent's defensive plan. As for the sideboard, no ley lines today. So Ouphe or Spells is about 6% of the meta. Blue-Black Reanimator is 20% of the meta. So I'm going to hedge for the stuff that is best against Blue-Black Reanimator, which is Faerie Macabre. Also, this can be found off of our Once Upon a Time. What I will say is Faerie Macabre occasionally does work against Ouphe or Spells, but quite often they Memory's Journey and you just kind of don't get anything going with your Faerie Macabre. But even if you just buy one turn with your Faerie Macabre, sometimes that one turn is enough to let you win the game. If they have to put the stuff back in their deck and draw on the following turn, maybe we can get in just by reducing their ability to go off on that specific turn. Also, because it costs 0 mana to use the Faerie Macabre, it does really help with our relatively mana-intensive combo turns. We've gone up to 3 Collector Ouphe because Carnforge and the Epic Storm are having a bit of a resurgence right now. The Not This World we cut from the main is now in the sideboard, alongside the Sylvan Safekeepers and of course Abrupt Decays to answer problem permanents. And we just got 1 Disruptor Flute there just to have another one of these sorts of effects. I'm currently working on the minutiae of the sideboarding guide for this, which will be posted on my Patreon at some point. But for now, sit back, relax, like, subscribe, and let's make some 2020s. For the best Eternal experience this summer, check out Eternal Mania in Hasselt, Belgium from August 8th to 10th. Aside from hosting the European Legacy Masters, they have a whole host of other tournaments from team trios to old school and pre-modern. I will be there playing Legacy and hanging out as a special guest. This will also be the first event that I'll be giving out my own special Marit Lage tokens, so why not come down to enjoy an awesome weekend run by one of the best TOs in Europe. Okay, how do we feel about our opener? It's pretty close. I'd rather not have the double Once Upon a Time. I think I will keep this though. Once Upon a Time does some work. We have 2 of one half of the combo. We've got the ability to dig a bit more, and we have just a tutor for it as well. We have a lot of draws here that can just win us the game. Our opponent's playing an island and passing. I will Once Upon a Time here. I will take an Elvish Spirit Guide here. I will deploy this Verdant Catacombs. The Verdant Catacombs means that we don't get hit by a Wasteland this turn cycle. One of the reasons why I think Green-Black Turbodepths has by far surpassed the Rainbow builds. Because you can do plays like this where you just get to stay safe for a little bit. And also you have easier access to basics to deal with things like Blood Moon, which is probably on the rise at the moment. Okay, Sneak Attack from our opponents. So we do need to be a little bit wary of counter magic from our opponents. A Pithing Needle, so we can name Sneak Attack. So we'll name the Sneak Attack. And then if our opponent's show and tells, we can put in the Hexmage and then try and crop rotation around like soft permission, like a daze. You don't see that many dazes in sneak attack decks anymore. Brainstorm, sure. Mistry Village, alright. We're not going to be countering any of the spells, not really what our deck is about. I don't think I'm going to burn a Spirit Guide here. We can use the Spirit Guide to play through some soft permission. Another Pithing Needle. I'll play out a Thespian stage here. Do we play out the Hexmage? Try and force something out of our opponent's hand here. We'll leave the basics in our deck because we can use the Ghost Quarter to get a basic if we need to colour fix. Let's get a Hexmage down. Our opponent's not really a deck that's going to interact with this while it's in play. Okay, I'm not going to use this Pithing Needle right now. I mean, if our opponent does nothing this turn, then we can end step the Once Upon a Time. So we're going to get some sort of interaction. A Spell Pierce, sure. It did cost us 2 cards, so not ideal, but we can live with it. A Duress. This is obviously an excellent pickup. I think I would like to attack first. I'm not expecting any flash threats. That's not really what these decks do. And if the only thing they might have is something really weird like a Hull Breacher, which is normally a sideboard card, but First Strike deals with it anyway. So now we get to Duress here. Spell Pierce, Flusterstorm, Show and Tell. If we take the Spell Pierce, next turn we would have to pay 2 mana to deal with this Flusterstorm, which is kind of the same as the Spell Pierce. So I could take the Flusterstorm right now, then I could play this Ghost Quarter, crop rotate around Spell Pierce, and have the win. Sure, I'll do that. Now, we do get punished if they... Actually, we don't even care if they get Emerald Call, because our creature's bigger anyway. So we play this out, and now we will float some mana. I will crop rotate, sacrificing the Ghost Quarter here. That leaves us with 2 to pay for the Spell Pierce. I will go and get the Dark Depths here. Am I going to play another Pithing Needle? What would it be on? Grizzlebrand? Just in case they've got some sort of weird pivot. I don't believe they're going to have Grizzlebrand, but just in case. Ancient Tomb. They have 1 mystery card in hand. We're obviously going to go for it here. We don't get to have infinite time in a matchup like this. Alright, we got the game. Bit of show and tell action. I don't hate the Disruptor Flutes. So let's have a look at stuff we don't need. So the Bojuka Bog, not really at its best here. So Disruptor Flute is much better than Pithing Needle here because we can name show and tell, which is actually the scary part of the equation. Hand Disruption, excellent. We don't really need a Ghost Quarter in this matchup either. So those two get us a Disruptor Flute and then something of our choice. I think we want like a Safekeeper. Do we want 4 Pithing Needles? I don't think we do. I think if our opponent's going on a defensive line... Actually, no, sorry. What am I talking about? We need to get these Abrupt Decays in because our opponent is a Blood Moon deck. So we get these 4 Abrupt Decays in. We got a little bit of protection for our creature getting bounced. We got the 2 Disruptor Flutes to name, show and tell. A bunch of hand disruption. Yeah, okay. Sorry, I haven't played against show and tell for a hot minute. And my brain just immediately forgot about the existence of Blood Moon. But yeah, Blood Moon is probably what they're going to reach for out of their sideboard. This matchup, in my recorded data, is pretty darn good. Last time I took this to a paper tournament, I think I 2-0'd 3 show and tell decks back to back. Pretty sweet. Interesting. A little bit slower than I would like. We don't necessarily get to disrupt. I think we're going to mulligan because of this matchup. Okay, I love having this much hand disruption. Would I like to have this Disruptor Flute, or would I like to just have more hand disruption and mana? I think the Flute goes back here. The chances of them making a turn 1 Blood Moon are relatively light, but it is possible if they go Ancient Tomb here. Now, we already have half of the mana we require. Okay, so a Brainstorm. So they're going to Brainstorm here, then play their fetch land. This Brainstorm is card disadvantage because they're using the Lotus Petal to get it done. Unless they've just got like a boatload of mana and maybe have another payoff. This could be another payoff. 2 Lotus Petals. We storm in. We're just getting show and tell on turn 1. It's pretty good, isn't it? Is it an Omniscience? It's just an Emrakul. Just a sweet little Emrakul. An innocent little friend. Sometimes getting turn 1 on the play is the thing that's going to happen. This deck does it like 0% of the time. I'm going to Thoughtseize my opponent and just get a little bit of information on what they're working with here. We're obviously going to die to this Emrakul. I just want to see some more cards. That's all, opponent. Just show me what you've got. And then I'll scoop. A ponder. Okay, nothing useful. Alright, yeah. Getting turn 1 by show and tell. I don't think that's happened to me in 3 years, maybe. It's been a long time. It's not really what the show and tell deck tends to do. It's much more of a slower pace combo deck. I'm not going to board in Collector Ouphe just for starts like that. They usually only have like 3 Lotus Petals anyway. So the fact they had all of them is kind of wild there. Obviously they only needed 2 of them for the play they made. Okay, we get to be on the play. Our deck has hand disruption in. This particular hand doesn't have any hand disruption. It can beat Blood Moon. I think I'm going to mulligan to some hand disruption though. Hand disruption, but it costs us a Lotus Petal. That's kind of rubbish. Alright, let's do a little bit better. Deck, what did I just say? We're going to do a little bit better, not do a lot worse. Alright, we're going to 4. Our deck can still operate pretty well on 4, but we're not going to have as much interaction. We're just going to have to be sending things. Alright, I'll keep this. Obviously, we don't need the Sejiri Steppe right now. We don't need the second Thespian stage. I guess we get rid of the crop rotation here. This has not gone how I would have liked it to. But we do at least get a chance to do this Sylvan Scrying before our opponent gets any counter magic up. Alright, Dark Depths. Because most of their counter magic is contingent on them having stuff in play. So like islands to cast their spells, for example. Like Spell Pierce, Flusterstorm, these sorts of things. A Duress. Okay, I will play out this Thespian stage. I will tap it for black, and I will... Do I Duress my opponent? If they show and tell here, we put in Dark Depths and we make a 20/20. That's pretty good. And they're just holding up what is clearly going to be a brainstorm here anyway. Okay, I think we just hold off for a turn, weirdly. If our opponent show and tells, they probably die here. That's a Lotus Petal. We're going to see a show and tell here. Now, they might be able to show and tell in Omniscience. They sometimes run it in these Sneak and Show decks, but not always. Magus of the Moon. Sure, that comes with its own problems, but we have boarded to beat these things. Our Dark Depths will come with 0 counters. But we're on a Multi 4, so we're a little bit light on our colours right now. We can take 2 for ages. Alright, another card that we don't get to use. We need to find Abrupt Decay and 2 of the correct mana sources to cast it. Not necessarily that easy, but we do have things like Lotus Petal that help. A Swamp. Okay. Let's Duress our opponent rather than Thoughtseize, because Thoughtseize costs us a turn on the clock. Okay. So they have no blue mana right now. Do I just play around that? Although they can't cast the sneak attack anyway. What do we want here? If they get 1 blue mana and get to rejigger their entire hand, I think we're just going to take the Force. From this position, I would back us to win the game most of the time. Like, it might not come up, and we might just get done, and so be it. But our opponent's hand does nothing. They're just all in on this 1 permanent, and we've boarded a bunch of cards in to deal with it. Right, they found another mountain. Good for them. A Thoughtseize. Are we now supposed to take out this sneak attack? They can't draw big monster and something else, but they could put the sneak attack in next turn, and that's not really where I want to be. So we are going to take a turn off the clock to get rid of the sneak attack. So we have 8 green sources left in our deck and 4 Abrupt Decays. Need to hit 1 of each within 5 turns. A Boseiju. What does that do for us here? Very little. Do we want it in play? I don't think so. Let me just pass. Okay. We're going to need to find 1 of our 2 pieces in the next turn or so. Lotus Petal. Okay, that is 1 of our 2 pieces. We probably need to Thoughtseize to make sure this resolves. Is that true? 6 cards. Taking a turn off the clock is huge here, though. I'm going to play this Lotus Petal without Thoughtseizing first. Alright, we're in. Okay. This only hits lands an opponent controls. We can't blow up our own land and go and colour fix. But now we've got 4 of in our deck to draw that just answers this uncounterably and gives us a 20/20 to win the game with. But it will unlock all our opponent's blue mana, which might do something. Right, now their blue mana is unlocked anyway. In an emergency, we do have this Boseiju. I don't think we win if we pitch this by cracking our Lotus Petal. Stock up. Yep, that's a good one. Look at that. I did tell you you should back us, and here we are. So I could blow this up and then Thoughtseize my opponent. Do I think that is the correct play here? Or do I think we just blow this up at end step? Right, we know our opponent's sat there with the show and tell. What can they show and tell and I don't like? They hit us for 2, then they hit us down to 3. And they just have to chump up with their guy. Alright, I think we just kill this and get the Thoughtseize off. We'll float black off of the Dark Depths here. We also just get to play a Dark Depths. Are they going to brainstorm and protect their hand? Or are they going to look for something? I'm not really sure what they could look for here. This feels like a hand protecting sort of brainstorm. Let's Thoughtseize you. Okay. Emrakul, Show and Tell. So they have a Show and Tell here. They have a Show and Tell on top. We don't really care about that. We can get rid of the Emrakul and shuffle whatever they put on top. I think we just hit the Show and Tell though. And then I'll play out this Dark Depths. So we have the ability to make another 2020 if they can somehow get rid of this. If they play an Emrakul, it's on chump block duty, which is my favourite kind of Emrakul. Emrakul is like one of the biggest, scariest monsters that you can play in Magic the Gathering. But a 2020 still does force it to chump block. They shuffled off the Ponder. Beautiful news for us. Another Ponder. You keep going, opponent. Shuffled again off the Ponder. And Volcanic Island. Brainstorm. They're coming to the end of all their spells here. Even if they find an answer to the Marit Lage, like a bounce spell, I guess they can... Okay, they're just done with us. So, when we were underneath this Blood Moon and it looked bad, what did I say? I said that we are odds on to win this game. What happened? We win this game. This matchup is a bit of a joke. Like, the Omnitel matchup is bad because they get to cast the Emrakul, but if they're not putting in Omniscience and they're just putting in guys, we usually curb stomp this sort of deck. And, you know, sometimes they can have the 1 in a million turn 1 Show and Tell you something spooky. But that's not really how the matchup usually works. So yeah, 1-0. That felt good. Let's keep going. This is a turn 3 with a Thoughtseize. I'll keep this. Given the nature of Legacy, we do have to Thoughtseize pretty early doors unless our opponent shows us something that's... Although, to be fair, there's not many starts that couldn't also pivot into a combo deck at the moment. Like I said, 57% of the meta is combo. So we need to be pointing Thoughtseizes early and often. Mox Diamond. Okay, if this is lands, which is likely... Okay, the Dried Armor. This is probably Green-White Depths, which is probably worse for us than land. It's like right up there with like our worst matchups. Because all of their deck does similar things to ours, except they have all these interaction, and like almost every card in their deck interacts negatively with what we're doing. So like these guys going and getting whatever they need is a little bit spooky. What is our solution to this? We need to... Okay, Not of This World is an excellent draw. What are we doing here? I could Thoughtseize the remaining card from my opponent's hand. Is that worth doing? I guess so. Like, Source of Plowshares is a card that our opponent's deck does run. So we'll just go and get a basic here. And fire in with the Thoughtseize. Okay, Knight of the Reliquary. That's not a bad hit. So the Reclaimers have to get stuff that comes in tapped. So that's a lot easier for us to maneuver around. So what are you doing now? So next turn we can play the stage out. And because we've got a basic in play, if they try and blow it up with something, we can Spirit Guide to make it copy our basic and dodge things like Wasteland. We don't hang out the Dark Depths until we're ready to go because our opponent can go and get their own Thespian stage and make their own 2020, and that's just not a game I want to play. Alright. We're fetching something because this is going to turn their other Reclaimer into a 3-4, so they're going to be able to get a clock on. I think this Not of This World might be the thing that wins us this game, you know. And we're going to be boarding in all of the protection effects that we can muster. What do they get here? Flagstones? I think it's Flagstones so that your next one goes up on cards. I think just in the blind of Swamp Thoughtseize, that's probably where you need to be. Yeah, they got the Flagstones. Our opponent agreed with us. Clearly a very smart and handsome individual. Alright, so we're going to take 3 here. Hexmage. We can't deploy the Hexmage. I'll deploy the stage. So if we have to copy the Swamp, then we have black for Hexmage. If we don't, then we just use this and get the Dark Depths going that way. A Wasteland, okay. So the Wasteland fizzles because it's no longer a legal target. And then next turn we can go Hexmage, drop the Depths, and rely on this Not of This World to get us over the finish line. We've even got another round of combo here. Do we go in our opponent's upkeep? I think we go in upkeep to dodge Wasteland. This way, if they're using mana, they have to use it this turn. These get tapped lands, so it shouldn't matter too much here. So getting a tapped Plains and a tapped Mystery Land. So tapped Plains is probably going to be a Savannah. Yep. But what is the Mystery Land they're getting here that they think was worthwhile? A Wasteland. That's not the one you want there, opponent. Unless they have the answer for this, but then we have the answer for their answer. So we need to have land and plow here to get anywhere. Alright, we managed to get a game off of one of our worst matchups. Very nice. So, what is useful? Things that protect our creature. So we want the Safekeepers and we want the Novice World. The Disruptor Flutes and Abrupt Decays are also pretty good here. As a general rule, hand disruption is pretty poor, so we can just board out all of these. We don't really need the Bojuka Bog. Like, shrinking our opponent's creatures is not really where I want to be spending my resources. And I think it gets a little bit tricky from there. Do we need all of these Disruptor Flutes? I think we do. We also need the fast mana so we can go fast. Like I said, I haven't done the full sideboard mapping on this list. Maybe we're just getting rid of one once upon a time. Because most of the stuff we're boarding in isn't creatures, although it does help us find Sylvan Safekeeper, which is a key creature. Alright, we'll go with this. Like, you could shave on, like, Spirit Guide here, if you wanted to. Or not bring in the second Disruptor Flute. Those are all fine things to do. Speaking of fine things, our hand is certainly not one of those. Let's mulligan. If this was a stable green mana source, I could be tempted. But this hand just doesn't really go anywhere. And sometimes the way to win this matchup is just to have the combo super early doors so they get one turn and one mana of interaction, and then you might just have the answer for that. Now this one I can keep. So we keep our combo card, we keep the thing that digs for the next combo piece, we keep some land. I think we can't afford to keep the Disruptor Flute or the Lotus Petal here. So we need to keep raw amounts of land, I think. We could keep the Petal over one land, because we're probably finding a land off of this. Alright, I'll bin off the Bayou and the Disruptor Flute. Mox Diamond, yep, you're going to be accelerating pretty hard here. A Dark Depths of their very own. They don't really want to play that because we're pretty good at capitalising on our opponent's versions of cards. Alright, 2 cards left in their hand. This might be a situation where we're using the Abrupt Decay to take out their... Oh, the Bayou came back anyway. This might be a situation where we use the Lotus Petal to Abrupt Decay right now. We'll see what this does and see if it changes my mind on anything. The Urborg is pretty handy here. But the Safekeeper is kind of one of the things that we're playing towards. I think I take the Safekeeper. And then I think it's Bayou, Lotus Petal, Abrupt Decay. We just can't let this engine start doing its thing. So there are effectively 16 cards in our deck that combo with Dark Depths. 8 shooters and then 4 stage 4 Hexmage. So this is the much harder part of the combo to find normally. So keeping hands where you have access to Dark Depths but not necessarily access to the other parts is a lot more justifiable than the other way around. Alright. No play. So no Knight of the Reliquary over there. Right, I'm going to play a Sylvan Safekeeper. I'm not expecting multiple like sweeper type removal spell. Like our opponent's going to be doing pinpoint removal. I think we get the Bayou so that we can cast the Hexmage if we draw it next turn. We have 2 Safekeepers. If I get like randomly blown out by some card I'm not expecting, then sure. This is going to be a crop rotation. Do they have Tabernacle? I think you would Tabernacle now if that's the case. Okay, so they're trying to make it so that if we ever get a Marit Lage, they get to also have a Marit Lage. That's pretty good. But we have ways of stopping this. We can Pithing Needle this and then try and go through the Dark Depths. Alright, so they're just going to make a Dark Depths token right now. That's pretty good. Oh, what are you doing? You need to do this now. You can't let me go to my main phase. They weren't punished, but they should not be going to our main phase here. That just gives us the opportunity. Well, they've already got the ability to go for Dark Depths, so we'll play our own and see if our opponent makes a mistake or not. I'd be surprised if they didn't just go for it here and win the game. I are deciding to make it. I think they made this at the wrong time. I think you're supposed to make it before we can play our stage out or something. Because if we, let's say we draw a stage that turn and we play the stage out. If they activate, we activate in response, we both end up with a 2020. If they just make it on their turn, then we need to put like 2 permanents into play, and that's just a lot less likely to happen. I think we just go back in again. I think the sideboarding is solid. I really don't like hand disruption against our opponent's deck very much. Like sometimes it comes in okay, but it's not really where you want to be going. Does my opponent think we... a turn 1 2020 is good, right? Turn 1 2020 is how I'm going to play this game. So we go Lotus Petal, Verdant Catacombs. Crack this now for a basic forest, I think. And then we go Hexmage. So we can try and play our way around a wasteland, or we can try and play around Source to Plowshares. That's what this Once Upon a Time finds. Now, if they play a wasteland, we can beat the wasteland over the course of a few turns. A Windswept Heath. There is the Windswept Heath. That is a Mox Diamond. So potentially 2 Swords to Plowshares. Yeah, we're obviously not just going to rat it off into what our opponent's got there. Okay. This seems a lot better for us. Let's go and get Bayou. Deploy Sylvan Safekeeper. So now they need to keep up 2 mana every turn. And then every land we get just kind of blanks out what our opponent's doing. Savannah. Cool. Oh, they're tapping low enough that we can kill them here. Alright, I will Knight to the Reliquary. That is game over then. Dark Depths with protection. Alright. This is a bad matchup. I think our opponent made a mistake playing this Knight of the Reliquary. We don't know what was in their hands, so we don't necessarily know what's going on there. But the more mana they keep open, the better. But I guess there's part of the problem here is that if we just keep accruing lands, then we're going to get past all of their interaction that they might have. But I think when your opponent Lotus Petals out a Hexmage on turn 1 and holds up green, you have to assume they have a combo there. Alright, 2-0, let's keep rolling. For free, fast and secure worldwide shipping on high-end singles, classic products and full sets, check out 3for1 Trading. Whether it's the legacy or pre-modern that I play on this channel, or even vintage and old school, they've got you covered. Find them through the link in the description of this video and use my code COWFREE for free worldwide shipping on your first order over $500 or euros. Yeah, we can play with this one. So you have turn 1, Pithing Needle for Wasteland. Turn 2, Hexmage Depths, enjoy opponent, I guess. Am I playing out this Lotus Petal? I think so. There's not a lot of white decks in the format that are going to be blowing it up. So decks with Prismatic Ending are at a pretty low trend right now. So we can just ignore those. If that happens, fair enough, but we've played the numbers there. Underground Sea, not a surprise. A Ponder, okay. I would like to be able to disrupt my opponent more before just going for it here. I think we might just even go for the non-spell-based version. Right, I do like having this Duress quite a lot. So let's fire him with the Duress. Brainstorm, Daze, Reanimate. We've already shut the Wasteland down. Do we care about the Reanimate? Is it the Brainstorm that I'm most worried about here? They can put the Atraxa into the graveyard this turn. Next time they get an Atraxa, and that ends up being a kind of annoying. I guess we do take the Reanimate. We could take the Brainstorm and it kind of can stop that same line. Maybe that's better. I'm really unsure about that pick there. If I wasn't recording content, I might spend a little bit longer thinking about it. But when I start thinking out loud and talking, I go into a bit of ramble mode. Alright. They didn't want to put the Atraxa... Oh, okay, so they're doing this. They should Brainstorm Response. They didn't Brainstorm Response. That is a weird line to me. I'll play out this Dark Depths. Alright, opponent. Are you going to draw Brazen Borrower this turn? Their Brainstorm potentially locking themselves. This gives them more mana to operate on their turn, but lets them see 1 fewer card this turn. But it ends up better if they have a Ponder or something. If they just hold up the mana, then we don't actually have to go. We can just feed in another land and then play around this Daze for the crop rotation on Sejiri Steppe. Underground Sea. 1, 2, 3, 4 cards in hand. So there's 2 mysteries over there. An Entomb, you say. For an Archon of Cruelty, you say. A Murktide Regent. You got it, boss. So their plan is to chump block. If we use this, we don't have the crop rotation here, though. That's kind of the issue. I don't think we're supposed to go right now, because we can't crop rotate our way through this unless we draw a green source. Right, I think we're just going to take another draw step. Okay, we do have another green source. We also have this Urborg, which makes us jump up in a huge amount of mana. So I could try and go for this Hexmage. I don't hate that. Do I hate that? Pretty bad into the Archon, actually. Okay, so we're not going to do anything. If they attack, then we should be able to kill them off. Wasteland, we know that's not operable right now. Are they coming in for 7? They can try and come in for 7 and bait us into getting hit by the trigger on this. But I'm not about that life. We can just take 7. I wouldn't say happily, but we can take 7. Alright, so now we can get our Marit Lage. We have crop rotation around days. If they've drawn a Force of Will, then they can get us here. Play on my land, just so you have more mana to play around soft permission. In with the attack. They drawn their Borrower? They have drawn their Borrower. Okay, how do I want to finagle this one? I think we're going to go crop rotate, sacrifice swamp. They did draw a Force of Will. That does definitely suck. Yeah, what do they pitch to that one? The days. Alright, I'll crack this for green mana, I think. I'll cast this Once Upon a Time. In response, I don't believe this is going to make any difference here because we can't take Not of This World. But we are pretty close to being able to combo again. We just need the Dark Depths. If our opponent's last card is also Reanimate, then sure. The win rate against this deck with Turbodepths in my data is about 55% in our favour. But 45% is a huge margin. That's why I rate this as a pretty even matchup. Like, we definitely have good tools for it, and we can get there, but the ceiling of this deck is just astronomically high. I think this game all comes down to us not taking the Brainstorm at the start. But then, now they would have the Reanimate, so they would have this Archon of Cruelty on tap. But maybe we could have worked around that anyway. But we don't know when they picked up the Force of Will. None of these do the things that we need them to do. Okay. We've already played a land for the turn. So I think we just get the Spirit Guide here. I would describe this as a very unpleasant turn for us. We can still win this. We can also use the Hexmage to strip counters off of the Regent. They're actually lower on Borrowers than they used to be. They used to be like a solid 3 of Borrower deck, and now they're more like a 1 or 2 of Borrower deck. But that doesn't mean that they don't have it. Right, so we're going to take 7. And things are getting a little bit dicey for us. Ponder, pretty useful for our opponent there. So we need Crop Rotation, Dark Depths, or Sylvan Scrying. All of those do it in terms of giving us a 20/20 because we can use this mana. And the Dark Depths will tap for black underneath the Urborg. We shuffle off the Ponder. Now there's a bunch of things we lose to as well. I don't know if they still even have this Atraxa. But we have one draw step to get through what our opponents put down over there. Thespian stage, that's not the one. We buy ourselves a turn though. Actually, that's not true. If they flash in this Borrower, we're dead. So we have to hope they forget about their Borrower. They also know the last card in our hand, so this isn't really going to achieve a great deal. Because they should just know that the coast is clear. They play Borrower, attack with both creatures. But we have to strip the counters off this, and then next turn make the 20/20, even that still isn't good enough if they play the Borrower out now. Yeah, that'll do. Unfortunate for us there. So, our deck is, generally speaking, relatively well tuned into what our opponent's doing, so we're not making enormous changes. And then we strip out a Disruptor Flute. That gets us a Faerie Macabre. Kind of tempted to get rid of these Once Upon a Times. I know that Once Upon a Time can hit the Faerie Macabre. But if you do that, your opponent just plays around it. The reason my Faerie Macabre is good in the matchup is because your opponent doesn't know it's coming, right? Whereas in neutral spells, it's fine to just sink your teeth in to get one of these in response. Alright, we're going to mulligan. Weird hand. Very weird hand. Turn 1. Play this. Turn it into Urborg. No, this hand doesn't really get us where we need to go. That's not true. It was fine, but our opponent had a lot of agency there. I wish I'd have kept the previous hand compared to this one, though. We have half of our combo. Yeah, we should have kept that previous hand and tried to go for the turn 2. It's a bit cold to Wasteland, but I think it's probably better than going to this 5. We're going to 4. I think we're going to 4. Okay, this one I can certainly work with. Alright, so we get to shut off some of the scarier things. We're not doing Ghost Quartz stuff. We probably need a green source, which means we're probably putting away this Lotus Petal. And then, what are we doing here? Do we want protection from Wasteland, or do we want the ability to combo? Alternatively, we put away this and maybe we draw a different green source. Alright, we have a lot of green sources. We're going to try that. So we'll lead off with a Pithing Needle for Wasteland. I'm not going to name a Polluted Delft and try and get cheeky. A Ponder. They did not shuffle, so that doesn't bode amazingly well for us. A Thespian stage. Sure. I will take this stage. Okay. If we want to chance it, we can just crop rotate and maybe hope for the best. Not really sure how I like that into our opponent's deck though. We can do it next turn, potentially. We'll see what our opponent does this turn. And if we have to move and do something, then so be it. But the more turns our opponent gets, the more resilient they're going to be to our combo. We can sculpt various answers and interaction. A Barrow Goyf. This strikes me as a play from someone who has a Daze or a Force of Will. Is it getting better for us? If we get hit once by this, it's not the end of the world, but if we get hit twice, or if they put another card type in the graveyard, it's pretty disastrous. I think we just go for it. We're on very reduced resources here. Enjoy your Force of Will and your victory, opponent. So Daze, it's annoying, but we can deal with that. We did have the Force. Okay, so they connect once, they go to 20, they connect a second time, and then the game is probably over. Like our deck is not really designed to play, you know, turns 7 and 8 of a game of Magic the Gathering. We're trying to get things done in the first 4 or 5, like first 4 turns usually, and then it sort of starts declining after that. There are sometimes weird games where you have to sort of angle for a spot, and there's a lot of sort of back and forth jostling. Surgical Extractor, my crop rotation. I don't believe that's the correct thing to be doing here. Certainly not this timing. Because we don't have any green mana, you should be doing this in my draw phase. If we had green mana, then I could understand wanting to do it at different timing. But it just seems odd to me. But maybe they just want to get a feel of what's going on over here. Like, the world is very much their oyster. It's also making it so that the Barrow Goyf is taking them further away from having above 20 life. Sure, Tamiyo is here. This is a very good chump blocker for a turn. We're going to copy their island so that we have a basic. Might not be relevant, but it's free for us to do so. They're getting them back a Faerie. Why are they boring in Faerie Macabre? I just don't think our opponent knows what's going on over here. They think we've got other stuff going on. Maybe they think we're alive from the loam deck, I guess. That would make some sense. The meta is too fast to be playing a loam-centric build of Turbodepths. Sure, that sucks. Let's pass. Obviously, lands is a kind of different beast. Like, the loam is even a secondary engine in the lands deck these days, which is trying to dig to its combo piece with things like Malevolent Rumble. Alright. Getting cracked for 3 here. This puts our opponent above 20 life, which is significant. That changes so many of the different metrics of the math that we're trying to put down. Short, drawing a card. I didn't get anything back with the Barrow Goyf at least. Do I want to continue playing this game? It is still winnable. It just doesn't feel great. Let's play a Pithing Needle. We're going to name Tamiyo something or other. Seasoned Scholar, maybe? Seasoned Scholar, I'm pretty sure that's what it's called. Yes, okay. So we could wait for them to flip this and then do that. But our mana might be tied up in the next turn trying to make something happen. Yep, the beats continue. Now they're going to be significantly above 20 life. So like one Fetch Hand or a Force of Will is not going to take them back to being one-shot hit. Okay, they can get Tamiyo back. That doesn't really matter when they already have one. But we're just so far behind here. Our deck is not designed to grind. Yeah, I think this is over. We're just going to scoop it up and move on with our lives. Unfortunately, we've fallen at the 3rd hurdle here. But 2 more rounds to go. This 4-1 is still potential, so let's crack on with it. This hand is not really going to get us to a 2020, so we're going to mulligan it. I've got some faith in a Once Upon a Time. So this only has to hit us 1 of 8 cards. Or sorry, 1 of 12 cards. Yeah, I like this one enough. I'll keep this. What we put back is a little bit of a trickier call. So we obviously need to keep the crop rotation. I think it's probably the Not of This World that goes, because we don't always need that in a matchup. But same thing goes with the Pithing Needle. Alright, let's have a little dig with our Once Upon a Time. Okay, so we found one of the things we're looking for. Now, I think it's just Bayou here. And we need to Thoughtseize because there are a bunch of turn 1 decks in the format. Duress, Dark Ritual, Lion's Eye, Diamond. Bit rude. Bit rude. Okay, I guess we take one of the Duresses. We don't want to take our Pithing Needle and our crop rotation because we can name Urza's Saga. But they can't Duress away our Hexmage. They're probably just going to take the crop rotation, which is fine because we need a little bit of time before that goes anyway. But we do get to take out their Urza's Saga with our Pithing Needle. There's a Landside Diamond. Do they just draw something that lets them combo this turn? I hope not. Dark Ritual. Infernal Tutor. They're going to crack the Landside Diamond. Ah, okay. Our opponent just top decked the thing that lets them immediately win the game. So they should be able to Gaia's Will from here, right? They beseech the mirror. Oh, they're just doing a good old-fashioned ad nauseum. Okay, they could kill themselves here. That's always thrilling. Okay. We're on 10 life over there. How much starting mana have we got? 1 Lotus Petal. Okay, the Chromox. That probably does it right there. Yeah, this wins. They don't need to take any more cards. I've not done the maths, but what's their Storm? It's already pretty high, right? 5, yeah. So they can just play everything out here. So we could have avoided this by playing out by taking their Lion's Eye Diamond. But their hand didn't go anywhere. We needed them to just brick for like a turn. Maybe I'm just supposed to be super defensive here. Right, I'm not going to let our opponents see any more cards in our deck. This game is already over. Okay, we have plenty of good stuff for this matchup though. Get in Collector Ouphes. Disruptor Flute is okay here sometimes. We don't really need Sejiri Steppe, so that can get out. We don't really need the Ghost Quarter. So that's 60 already. Do we want access to any Faerie Macabres or Abrupt Decay? So what Abrupt Decay can do is if our opponent plays a Wishcore Talisman out and passes, we can Abrupt Decay it. But we could also do the same with the Disruptor Flute. And it's kind of the same deal. I think we don't need any of these things. Like we could have the Faerie Macabres just to make the Gaia's Will lines a little bit worse. But we can maybe do that on the draw rather than on the play. Like when we are on the play, we just want to be hitting them with Thoughtseizes and stuff. And we always have the Bojuka Bog line we can try and reach for if they go for a Gaia's Will line. I would like to play a turn 1 Collector Ouphe, please. So quite often how you win matchups like this is or more so Karn Forge, but it does work here sometimes, where you play Collector Ouphe and then you play Pithing Needle naming Urza Saga. So what is the best thing for me to play out here? I don't really want... I think we just play out the Forest here. No more artifact mana for you, opponent. Cut that right out. The next turn we can Thoughtseize. If we draw a Hexmage, we can just go for the combo instead. That is an Urza Saga. They probably have an answer to Collector Ouphe. Actually, what answer? They can't have an answer. They can get off Urza Saga. Alright, Pithing Needle is great news. Let's Thoughtseize our opponent first. Beseech the Mirror. Bar Ritual. We'll take the Tutor. So can they get anything off of this? They can play the City of Traitors, can't they? So let's Pithing Needle name Urza Saga. In come the beats. This is not a matchup where you necessarily have to be racing towards the combo. Your bits that suppress what they're doing are way more important. I played out a land that doesn't tap for mana. Interesting. So now we have the combo this turn. Because this becomes Dark Depths, we can tap it for black, feed it into the Thespian stage, and away we go. I'm a little bit worried about Pithing Needle, so I'm going to crop rotate in response. So it becomes a copy of Dark Depths. We keep the one with no counters on. We make a 20/20. Enjoy your whatever from your Urza Saga. Candy Trails. This scries when it enters. That's why they've gone and got it. But they're not going to get another turn to use whatever card they put to the top unless they can find a way to draw additional cards right now. They put one on the top and one on the bottom. They're going to Duress us and see nothing. And then they're scooping. Okay. Alright. Do I want Faerie Macabres for Gaia's Will lines? I don't think so. They've shown us they're doing ad nauseum stuff, so they might not even have that much dependency on something like a Gaia's Will. So I think we're just going to resubmit. Who could pass up such a beautiful hand? Wish I was on the play, but this hand is turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 20/20. This is exactly the money shot that we love with this deck. We have had turn 1 20/20 this game, or the option for one. But there's just something really nice about turn 1 Thoughtseize, turn 2 Hexmage. Now, if our opponent kills us on turn 1, then get wrecked me, I suppose. Okay. So they can put an ad nauseum on the stack right now. A Wish Claw. That is not as good. Because that's 3 mana. So they're not going to have any mana floating after this. So they need to ad nauseum their way to the win right now. I guess it doesn't have to be right now, but okay. Lotus Petal, Chrome Mox. This is a perfect start already. Analyze our diamond. Another Chrome Mox. Another Chrome Mox. Jeez. Okay. Inferno Tutor. Thoughtseize, Cabal Ritual. Duress. Wishful Talisman. I think this already wins, right? I haven't done the math, but it looks like our opponent's got it. So they go... Oh, Dark Ritual. That doesn't hurt either. 1 mana, 2 mana, 3 mana, 4 mana, 5 mana, 6, 7, 8 mana, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 mana, and enough Storm. Yeah, you got me on turn 1 there, opponent. The Faerie Macabres would have made a difference there. Sometimes you get bopped on turn 1. I'd much rather get bopped by something like this, like a non-deterministic line. It doesn't quite get there. Our hand was super good, though. Unfortunately, it didn't quite get there. Alright, we're 2-2, so the final round is whether or not we hit positive, so let's find out. This is a turn 3, that seems alright to me. We've got a little bit of disruption along the way. I enjoy starting off any game of Magic the Gathering by Thoughtseizing my opponents. What are you working with here? Painted Servant, Grindstone, Grindstone. I guess we take Painted Servant. That's quite the Magic the Gathering hand. It knows what it likes. Okay, I don't want to see them play the Saga on 1. Yep, Grindstone. Lotus Petal. Okay, I think we play out the Thespian stage here. So we have the Boseiju in an emergency. Mono Red Painter is a pretty good matchup for us, though. Alright, we should kill them before this Saga pops, which is all that matters. Agatha's Soul Cauldron. Sure, we don't care about that. We can pop it if we ever need to, but I'd rather not give my opponent more mana. Let's play out Lotus Petal. Play out Dark Depths. There you go, opponent. Even if you play an Ensnaring Bridge, we can make the Marit Lage and blow up your Ensnaring Bridge with this Boseiju in my hand. Good luck. Although not too much luck. I don't want to get randomly blown up by something I've never seen before. Alright. That was relatively pain-free. So, we have lots of things that are good in this matchup. We do not need Not of This World, though. And I don't really like Bojuka Bog. There's an argument for keeping it, but I'm not really a fan. Like me some Collector Ouphes, Abrupt Decays, and the Disruptor Flute. These are all things I'm interested in. Not really into the Sejiri Steppe here. The dresses aren't that exciting. I think we need to keep our mana so that we can make our creatures. I think we're just going to take out a Bojuka Bog and maybe a Ghost Quarter. And we're probably just binning off another piece of hand disruption. That seems fine. So our opponent is a Blood Moon deck, and they're way more into Blood Moon than they used to be, since it doesn't tread on their own toes now like it used to with their sagas. So we kind of want to have an answer to Blood Moon if possible in our opener. This does not look like a great hand to me. Thoughtseize them, sure. Dark Depths, pretty good. Okay, I'll keep this. I'll put back this redundant Urborg. The turn 1 Blood Moon could be a little bit annoying, but they tend not to be a turn 1 Blood Moon sort of deck. They're more of a turn 2 Blood Moon sort of deck. Alright, let's fire in with this Once Upon a Time. A Collector Ouphe or a Hexmage? I'll take a Hexmage, and I will Thoughtseize my opponent with the intention of trying to kill them on turn 3 with a 2020 we've made on turn 2. Lightning Bolt, Fable Mirror Breaker, Red Elemental Blast. We don't care about any of these. I guess we take the Fable so they just can't loot through and get something new going. This hand will not beat us. That is an Urza Saga. What did you draw for turn? I wonder. Here comes a Hexmage. And our opponent's had enough. I did say that Painter is a good matchup. And I think we demonstrated that our opponent was just not up for that at all. So we finished with 3-2. A little bit unfortunate. One of the rounds we lost 0-2. That was Reanimator, actually, which is normally slightly favourable for us. But again, the deck is very high-powered. It has a lot of agency. And the thing about the Reanimator deck is it attacks on multiple lines. We normally don't care about their fair plan. But in terms of how they interact with us, they have counter magic, wastelands, and things that interact with Marit Lage. So they do have the trifecta of things that can mess up our game plan. And sometimes they get them in the right proportions and we just lose. Sometimes they don't get them in the right proportions and it's fine. And then we lost to the Storm deck. We got comboed out on turn 1. It's going to happen. Alright, so let's talk about the list. So I quite like where this list is at right now. This is what I've been working with for the last week-ish, just trying to lean slightly more into beating Blue-Black Reanimator. I think if you wanted to, you could take out this Disruptor Flute, but lands is on the upswing, so I don't really want to go down on Disruptor Flute because it's a really key piece of interaction in that particular matchup. I think I like the Faerie Macabres as our plan for Reanimator. We did also mulligan to like 4 against Reanimator, so, you know, numerous things were conspiring to beat us there. But given that the Blood Moon changes with how it works, it's the Urza Saga changes in terms of how it works on the Blood Moon, it means we're seeing more Blood Moon. And you might think, oh, that's going to be bad for your deck, isn't it? Not true at all. Red matchups are actually one of our better matchups because they don't interact with our Marit Lage, so we can kind of just ignore some of our stuff. And then we can just beat up on the fact that they have this card that is enabling us, right? So if they play Blood Moon, we play Dark Depths, it comes in with no counters, and then we Abrupt Decay their Blood Moon, we end up with a 20/20. So as long as you just make sure that you know what your opponent's doing, you can quite easily beat Blood Moons with your Abrupt Decays and Boseijus, and that's the reason to play the green-black build, because you end up with your fetch lands to get your basics. So you've got 4, 5, 6, plus another 8, so that's 14 sources of mana to get your basics underneath you. Or, well, like, so you've got your 4, so you've got 6 lands, sorry. So you've got your 4 Verdant Catacombs, your Swamp, and your Forest. So you've got 6 things to get mana underneath you before the Blood Moon comes down. And then you've got what, 10 sources after Blood Moon comes down between Spirit Guide and your basics and the Lotus Petal to then work through the Blood Moon. So there's plenty of ways you can work through it. And my win rate against like Mono Red Painter is actually my highest win rate of any matchup, I believe. It's I haven't got the data with me right now, I'm not going to load it up, but last time I checked it was like around the sort of 80-odd%. So, you know, playing into Blood Moon decks is actually pretty good for us. I think this is more or less what I'm going to stick with right now. There is a temptation to trim 1 Duress for 1 Inquisition, because Inquisition hits specifically Brazen Borrower, and if 20% of the meta is going to be Blue-Black Reanimator, we should probably gear our deck to be as good against Blue-Black Reanimator as we can. The Inquisition will miss Force of Wills though, but quite often you can use it to hit the thing that the Force of Will is going to need to be pitched to it. So maybe swap the numbers of these two around. That's more or less where I'm at the moment. But like I said, I'm just fine-tuning the sideboarding for this, and then I'm going to post a thing on my Patreon. By the time this video comes out, it'll probably be about the day before, or roughly the day of, me posting the sideboard guide to this. So I'm going to sort of hammer through it over the next few days, and I obviously record these ahead of time. Alright, I hope you enjoyed this one, and have a little bit of love for my Turbodepths. If you want to see some Turbodepths action, there's plenty of it on my channel. If you want to read about the theory and stuff behind this deck, and ways of sequencing lands and all sorts of stuff like that, I have a very detailed guide to it on my Patreon, which is linked in the description. Alright, thank you once again for watching. Please remember to like and subscribe, and goodbye. If you'd like to support me in the channel, please check out my Patreon. It has a free guide to budget Turbodepths, as well as 3 tiers of support. A low cost one that enters you into my monthly raffle for a free donation deck on the channel, a mid-tier subscription that gives you access to my detailed Turbodepths guide that is updated every month, as well as regular articles, and lastly the higher tier gives you all of the above, as well as a monthly donation deck for my channel. If you're interested in supporting the channel this way, please check out the link in the description.